Wow. Oh, wow. I'm having my porridge or my oatmeal, and I remember a recipe, or at least one ingredient that my friend Brian told me about. Some of you probably do that. Lalita, let me have breakfast in peace, baby girl. Back in 2019, when right before I flew to India, because I was visiting him and his family, Brian, my friend Brian, a great friend from high school in New York City of Indian descent, but his family coming from Trinidad, Tobago, or Tobago, whatever. And I remember he gave me a big pot of peanut butter, Jif, or Skippy, and everything. But I remember at his home in Florida, where I was visiting him and his family for 5 days before flying out. We were reconnecting because we hadn't seen each other since like 1993. And then we saw each other again in 2019. And our friendship had not changed. And nothing. It was just friends for life. We love each other as good friends we were in high school. And he told me, add peanut butter to the oatmeal. And of course, your little nuts or whatever you add to it. Banana, slices of banana right now in there. Some apple slices too. A little bit of turmeric powder. A little bit of cinnamon powder. But the peanut butter, that's the trick right there. That's delicious. And of course, a little bit of powdered brown sugar. Panela. Panela pulverizada in Colombia. So yeah, great breakfast. Had my empanadas first. Now I'm having my oatmeal, healthy for the heart and whatever else. It is delicious. It is. The law of attraction does in fact work, at least from my experience. Some of you might say whatever and whatever, but it does work. Do the research and all of that, and then experiment. Try it out. Do it for a long time. And then it's going to take sometimes years before you actually realize that it did work. The law of attraction doesn't work exactly the way you plan it to come out and when you want it to come out, when and how, the way you want it. I was just looking back while I was listening to Miami Sound Machine, Conga, or whatever the name of that song was that I remember listening to so much that I always associated with Miami, and I still do. And plain and simple, I just realized today, like this is 2024. I mean, this is back all the way from 1987 that I was thinking about this. 88, when I really wanted to go. Moved down there in terms of I was a teenager, and my dad said, yeah, we're going to move. But he just told me that to brush me off because I was so intense about moving to Florida, down to Miami, because I wanted to be in the all year round nice weather in general. Well, except for the summertime, which is scorching hot and very humid and sticky. But at that time, I really wanted to live in that type of weather. All year round, no snow, no freezing weather and whatever. And I liked the heat at that time. Not the Miami heat, I'm talking about the heat. Hot weather. And I remember that I wanted to move there because I had come to Colombia back in 86, 2 years prior, 1 year prior, and I really loved it here in terms of Medellin and Envigado. The weather, it was so nice at that time. The weather's just hotter now in Medellin and Envigado. It's like 35 years later. Yeah, 35, 36 years later. And the global warming and everything has affected the whole planet. And the temperatures are like 5 degrees warmer Celsius. Now, instead of what it used to be the city of eternal spring, Medellin. Now it's just becoming the city of eternal, like a lot of warmness. Very warm, sometimes hot. And that's just too much for me. But yeah, the law of attraction does work. I remember always visualizing. That's what I wanted. Visualizing it. I was watching Miami Vice on TV. I would never miss an episode in any movie that was about Florida, especially Miami and whatever. I was watching them. I remember all of that. Band of the Hand and all that things. I think Band of the Hand was in Florida somewhere. But yeah. And I went on to vacation to Florida a couple of times during that time from 87 to 95. And but it never happened. Of course, I never lived in Miami or anywhere like that. But I remember I wanted to. I wanted to. I wanted to. And then in '95, I moved down to Envigado, Colombia, right next door to Medellin. And I was getting what I wanted, but I didn't realize that I was getting what I wanted, but it was not in the United States of America. It was in Colombia, South America, this country, my parents' home country. So I am Colombian American. Parce, ¿qué más? ¿Todo bien o qué? Para los que ustedes que les gustan criticar que es que yo soy un gringo y que yo no soy de aquí, yo no sé qué cuentos, lo que sea.com. That's just for those Spanish speakers that are always thinking that I'm just an American and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then this and that, and I don't know, and just some stupid thoughts on their part. But the law of attraction does work. And I realized that I've been living the dream I wanted, but not in the place I wanted, and not when I wanted it. It took about 8 years to manifest that thing. Sometimes these things manifest immediately, sometimes a few days later, a few weeks later, a few months later, a few years later, or many years later. For me, it was about 8 years, because from '87 that I really wanted to move to Florida, because I went to Florida in 1987 on vacation. It was like spring break, and it was awesome. It was cool. I mean, with my family down in Miami, and I remember just enjoying all of it. We were there for a week at some friends of mom and dad, mom and pop's friends, and I enjoyed it so much. I really wanted to be there. So I got Medellin, Envigado, and all of that, and I have enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for many years, for like 14 years. I enjoyed living down in Envigado, because I didn't live in Medellin. I lived in Envigado and in Rio Negro, and it was great. And I just realized that this morning, the law of attraction does work. And I was also doing the same thing for India, and it didn't happen when I wanted. It took like about 5 years. I started visualizing India back in 2014, and I got it in 2019. It took 5 years. And other things that I've visualized in my life that I made mental images of, and very vivid, very vivid. The more vivid they are, and the more you do it, the more the greater the possibility of them manifesting. And I always wanted to live in a country house, and I was like not paying rent. And then here I am on my dad's property. So I don't pay rent, but I do help out with the utility bills and cutting the grass and whatever and this and that. And it's good. And I help my father out with his dealings, and visualization does work in terms of the law of attraction. You just got to be persistent, and it's not going to happen when you want it and the way you want it exactly, but it can happen. It all depends on you. There are no guarantees, but it can happen. Do the research. There are many books out there and people talking about it, and I'm just one of them. But don't believe anything I say. Do it yourself and see. Don't give up easily. Keep going.